Welcome to Small Business Talks. My name is Shiraz Sadiq, and this is the Marketing Automation Series brought to you by Zoho and Canadian SME Business Magazine. Now, Zoho is the leading international full suite of business applications covering every aspect of business, HR, accounting, marketing, and so much more. Their organic growth across Canada has been nothing short of extraordinary. Why? Because they solve the challenges that every business face in their daily operations. It's more than technology. It's leveraging the power of synchronized information so every department is reading off the same page. Let's go.
Welcome to the Marketing and Business Automation Series brought to you by Zoho. Today, we'll chat with Chris O'Neill, Chief Growth Officer at XERO. His experience began as a young man helping out with the family's Canadian Tire franchise, making decisions at the dining room table, to now leading growth and expansion and on a global scale. Let's get into his story, Dining Room Automation. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Small Business Talks. Of course, we're talking about marketing and business automation. Now, a couple of months back, I got to hang out in New Orleans. And Chris, am I saying that right? Hold on. Even before I introduce you, is it New Orleans or is it Nolans or is it NOLA? What do you go by?
I think you say some version of Norlands or something like that if you're really cool. But look, New Orleans works. I'm a fellow Canadian, and that's how we say it up there. So let's go with New Orleans.
Fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris O'Neill. I'll let him introduce himself in a little bit more detail about his role at XERO and what he does. But the reason why we're having this conversation is because Chris was telling a room full of people, and I had the privilege of being in that room, about what was happening at his dining table growing up and how far automation has come from his dining room table. Now, folks, as small business owners, we all know that experience of taking our dining table and turning it into our boardroom, or it's where we do our accounting, or it's where we do our strategy sessions, and then we're whiteboarding everything. But at some point, sophistication kicks in as we grow. And that's why we have Chris here today. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Shiraz. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's good to see you again. And I enjoyed our first conversations down in New Orleans.
So let's let the audience know what your role is and why you thought it was a good idea to join XERO.
Yeah. Some of the themes are connected. So technically my title is Chief Growth Officer at XERO, and that means a couple of things. I'm responsible for all the things that happen in the Americas, and then I manage a number of our product areas on a global basis. So the best way to think about XERO is like it's a platform for small businesses and all the different things that small businesses need to do, from staying organized and compliant and paying taxes and all those fun things, to paying your employees, if you have employees, or managing your money and your cash flow. Those are the things that I'm responsible for on a global basis, to make sure that we make it easy for those jobs to be done. And sometimes I like to say, put the back office in your back pocket, so to make it really easy for small businesses so that they can spend time on the reason they started the business in the first place, right? No one started a business to pay taxes. At least
that's for sure.
Haven't found anyone yet, but anyway, that's our job.
We all have to do it. I don't know who enjoys doing it. But this is what captivated me, was a good old Canadian boy working with his family and the family business. Is it all right if I mention the name of the retail outlet that your family had?
Yeah, of course.
Your family had a Canadian Tire franchise, growing it and building it out somewhere in the Cobourg area. I could be wrong.
Interestingly, it was in Acton, Ontario, and then really where we spent the most amount of time, at least when I was a kid, is in Goderich, Ontario, on the I like to say on the shores of the mighty Maitland River, right? town of 7,500 people plus or minus. It's a beautiful town, very immodestly named Canada's prettiest town, but a great place to grow up, and that's indeed where my memory of life in a small business kicks in. So that's where.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not speaking to a corporate stuffy individual. Now, I'm not labeling everybody that way. What I am saying and celebrating is we're speaking to someone who gets it. He knows it. he grew up the way that you are all living, that all of us are living in this entrepreneurial life, and how to grow it and take it to the next level. So now, Chris, can you describe your dining room table growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family of six. So both my parents were in the business. My mom was essentially managed the office and was the bookkeeper, and then my dad managed the front end. And then there are four kids. My parents had four of us within 6 years, so
Oh,
pretty
okay.
pretty chaotic. A good Irish Catholic family, and we were all very hectic, very athletic. We played a lot of sports.
Okay.
We pretended to do school every once in a while. But the way a typical day would work was we'd get home from school and our activities, and then we tried, didn't always succeed, but we'd try to eat dinner together, and usually it was later than average because of what we as the kids were busy with, and then our parents would be working until 5 or 6 or so, sometimes a little later, so they wouldn't get home until around 7 o'clock or so. But we would then sit down if we were there to have dinner at this creaky old wooden table. And then we would all have to contribute to dishes. We'd clear the table. And then that table became my parents' home office, right? And
Okay.
I like to say that was their second job. First job was dealing with staff and employees and customers, of course. And then the second job was after all the dishes were done, they would sit down for the night shift, right? And that
Okay.
second job was really all the back office things, like my father ordering products and taking. I remember he showed me a lot of these things. He would draw on a piece of paper and he would do scheduling, right, among other things, right? And then my mom would balance the
Okay.
books, making sure that we were paying taxes, like all the other details that go into running a business. So that was my reality, and there would be very few nights when I didn't remember, going to bed. My parents would tuck me in, but they would then go back to that table. And so that's my memory of what life was like as a small business, and they certainly worked their tail off for many, many years. And so that's the connection to, excuse me, the wooden table, and very rich memories as a kid growing up. And of course, I did mention this to you too. We all worked in the store. Some of us
Right.
harder than others, I might add.
Right.
But we were all invited to work very hard in the store. So those were some of my first jobs.
When you talk about first jobs and where you get, there's this sense that most people end up living out their career in direct relation to the first job that they ever had. It's really interesting. So for myself, my first job that I ever had was going door to door businesses and selling chocolate covered almonds. Now, I unfortunately ate a lot of my product, but I sold a lot of product. It's helped develop my communication skills and just my ability to engage people.
Yeah.
When you look at your DNA from in your formative years, as far as seeing a visual of what work represented, why then did XERO come into your fold then and say, okay, well, this is what this company does really well, and how can I fold this into what I'm continuing to become?
Yeah, our purpose is pretty awesome at XERO, and it really is the connective tissue to why, the thread, if you will, as to why I'm at XERO. Excuse me. It's our job is to make the lives of small businesses and their advisors and the communities in which they operate better. And a lot of technology companies, have hand wavy, aspirational purposes in their why, and it is really true to the core of what we do. That's what we're all about.
Okay.
So the other way to translate it into the story it is told is, like, to me, it's about removing that second job, right?
Okay.
Like all that stuff. Having spent 20 plus years in technology, there's no good reason that all, if not, or close to all that, can just be automated or eliminated, right? And that's the beauty of companies like XERO, hometown, our country hero, Shopify, and many, many other layers in the SMB stack can really go to basically automating, again, getting time back for the entrepreneur to focus on why they started the darn reason the business in the first place. So that's what it's really about. It's true. It's authentic. That's, we don't just say that. That's what is our guiding principle or our North Star for the company. And it's really cool to be a part of something that has such an authentic connection to my DNA, as you said, and my upbringing.
So we literally could drop the mic, shut it down right here. If automation can be wrapped up in one phrase, is eliminating that second job, like already we're done. Ladies and gentlemen, sign up right now, right? But we want to get into a little bit of your marketing background and pull some practical and tactical skills that we can employ and deploy as small business owners. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're in conversation with Chris O'Neill. He is the Chief Growth Officer for XERO. And when we come back, we're going to push him for at least 3, maybe even 4 techniques that you can apply immediately. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, today we are in conversation with Chris O'Neill, Chief Growth Officer for XERO. Now, Chris, before we took that small break, I put you on the spot. I said, hey, we need these 3, maybe even 4 practical and tactical techniques that every small business owner can apply through a simple concept of automating their operations, whether it's marketing. Accounting, of course, is a big piece, right? The way that I've heard it many times is anything that you have to repeatedly do, don't automate it. Anything that requires thinking and growth, that's what you probably need to focus on. So what are some tasks? Let's start off in the marketing space, because I know that you spent a lot of time in that arena in the corporate world. What would you say to our audience today? Say, hey, here's some things that you want to probably automate, and here's why.
Yeah, so it's interesting when COVID hit, so many companies were forced to think about digitization and automation. In some cases for the first time, or some cases like they had no choice. And so I'll start there. I mean, it's fairly obvious that the benefits of doing things digitally. So, for example, sending an invoice, right? Why is it that invoices and payments are done any other way but digitally? Right. So think about marketing. It's a great opportunity to represent yourself in a professional way. And there are many, many tools. XERO is one of them. Of course, we have the ability to send invoices and then reconcile them automatically. So it's like the digitization benefits are many, but it starts with how do you represent yourself, whether you're a plumber or whether you're a florist, whatever you happen to be. Represent yourself beautifully with a digital expression. That could be a storefront on the variety of different platforms, and encourage everyone to have those. Most of them are free or very, very low cost to have a presence. And the tools to help build those are, again, I mentioned Shopify. If you're in commerce, I mean, that's an obvious one. But to have a professional front, that's where it really starts. So that you show up and maybe have an image that allows you to punch above your weight. That'd be one. And then automate things like invoices and payments. The reality is, you're actually going to get paid faster, and you're going to really make it easier for the other person to do business with you. And then all the exhaust, or all the details, if you will, from invoices and payments can automatically be integrated into the systems of record for your business.
Okay, so now, so far, what I'm hearing is there are many opportunities for low cost or no cost entry points into automating and putting yourself out there in a digital world. Chris, what we constantly hear, and I'm wondering if anyone watching this episode right now, it feels the same way. It's okay, no cost, low cost, but I don't get it. I don't understand it. And there's this barrier to automation, and how much control do I have to give over to automate? Because control seems to be a big factor through all the conversations that we have. Well, I'm not sure if I want to give up control. I'm not sure if this is actually going to work. To that person who feels hesitant and saying, hey, I don't understand it, so I'm not going to do it. Ignorance isn't always bliss. But if I don't have to tackle this, I can just stay bliss in my ignorance. How do we help, to the person listening right now to say, hey, it's not that scary?
Yeah, it's really it's easier to say it's not scary, but for some people it just is. And the way we look at the world is, is the relationship to technology. Do people view that technology can be part of the solution? right? And do they have a sufficient amount of operational complexity? Because the reality is, for very small businesses that have modest amount of operational complexity or very little operational complexity, and not that much comfort with technology, they should probably not try to venture into this world. But that's a small small percentage of the world today, or in the future it certainly will be. But I would say two segments right beyond that. Those who are willing to try it themselves. The reality is these tools have evolved to a point where it's straightforward to do it. You just got to get started. There's vast amounts of online materials, videos to coach you through it. Companies, I mean, one of the trends that is very interesting is a democratization, a leveling of the playing field for small businesses, right? It used to be that only the big players used to have access to these types of tools.
Sure.
And that's not the case anymore, right? Again, when I talk about a small business technology stack, if you kind of think about every element of it, there are tools that are, I don't want to say purpose built for small businesses, but pretty close. So I guess my advice is get over any resistance if you have an appetite and do it yourself, right? Basically, lean into tutorials, online access. The other, of course, is to get a great advisor, right? There's a growing segment of the world that basically they're I think I have kids and they get more coaching on a random Saturday afternoon, whether they're playing soccer, football, whatever, than an average small business gets in a whole year. Right. So
wow. Say that again.
Just think about whether in Canada you're getting coached multiple times a week in hockey or whatever sport your kids play.
Okay.
A typical weekend afternoon for my kids, the amount of coaching they get in that afternoon is more than a typical small business would get in the course of a year.
Wow.
And it's encouraging to me that there is a growing segment of accountants and bookkeepers who are really building interesting businesses, the sole purpose of which is to be an advisor to small businesses. That includes how you build your technology stack. It includes best practices on how to get paid faster, how to manage your cash flow, all sorts of very specific small business things. So to step back, the tools that used to be accessible only to the larger or mid-sized companies are now being brought down and being very, very accessible for small businesses. If you have an appetite, technology, if you're the type of kid that programmed your VCR button when you were there,
I'm wondering if for some of our audience, we need to define, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead when we edit this, put up a picture of a VCR to show some of our audience what that actually is.
I think I just dated myself. But ultimately, lean into, we do believe that the coaching, whether it's in sport or in business, is a very valuable thing. So find a great advisor that can really help you.
Chris, thank you for making that bifurcation. Technology is not the solution, but it certainly can be a part of empowering the product or service that you offer to the marketplace. And that's a huge thing, because some people will say, like, insert coin here and just watch the dance, right? It's certainly not what technology is supposed to do, but it certainly allows you to, it empowers it to be a part of your solution. You're talking about the democratization of access to tools that perhaps only large companies could have had before, but now it's easily and readily accessible to most people. And that allows, what you said, to allow companies to punch above their weight. Certainly love that. And another key point you're bringing to bear is, hey, we don't have to know it all, but there's a ton of people who love drilling down and being experts in their field. Right. So partner with experts in the community that you are around and see what resources they can be. Again, be a part of your solution, not the solution, but be a part of your team. Now, Chris, XERO specifically, how do you see XERO from a business automation perspective? See, I think our audience might see XERO accounting. But there's so much more than simply straight dollars and cents and balance sheets. What else can our audience anticipate when they come into the Xero ecosystem to be able to benefit from?
Yeah, we look at just the jobs that need to be done for a small business, right? We mentioned the first, like, okay, yeah, everyone needs to pay taxes, or close to everyone needs to pay taxes and stay organized and compliant. That's okay. Can't avoid that one. If you employ employees, you need to pay them and
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do that in a way, and schedule them, right? So just how you think about employment, from beginning to like hiring people, to onboarding them, to paying them, making sure the
Mhm.
benefits, and then offboarding them eventually if they move on. And that's a whole area. Like, how do you pay people? How do you get paid? How do you manage your cash flow? All the money related challenges that go
Right.
into small business, and those are really challenging ones, right? A lot of businesses fail because of poor cash flow management. So that's another job that we really help people. I mentioned some of them. E-invoicing, payments,
Yeah.
bill payments. All these things are automated now, and they can kind of reconcile together into a system of record. So one way to think about it, and I'll use different terms to say, hey, system of record, like things like financial statements that need to be submitted to tax authorities and other places, maybe your bank. That's really our sweet spot, where we grew up.
Okay.
What we're doing is evolving to a system of engagement. So engaging with your employees, engaging with money, all these sorts of things where there's workflows. And then where we're aspiring to go is a system of information or insight that can say, be a partner just like a coach would be, to say, hey, you have an opportunity here with your payroll, or maybe your expenses are a little too high over here, or maybe, very,
Wow.
very specific, powered by machine learning and advanced technologies, to say, hey, how can we help this small business be a little better, optimize a little bit? So these are the sorts of things, and we do wrap it much like the App Store for a consumer business, like whether that's the Play Store, the Android, or Apple's App Store. We have an App Store for business. We've over 1,000 different applications,
Wow.
which are really powered by open APIs. So you can actually, if you have a very specific niche case in your business, it could be a specific, maybe it's a currency conversion tool that you need, and you can plug it in, or maybe it's a crypto related thing. I mean, you name it. We have a long tail of application development partners that have built their technology in a way that's compliant and complementary to our platform. So there's no shortage of automation opportunities. That's really what we're doing, right? We believe it's like making this amazing open platform that allows
Mhm.
those important jobs that a small business to be done, just make them really easy, and make them all possible. So that's really what we're after. And again, back office in the back pocket, as everyone's carrying around a small, a supercomputer in their pocket. We want to make it dead easy, so you can just, with a few clicks of buttons, again, remove that second job that my parents had.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined and been fortunate to have this conversation with Chris O'Neill. He, again, is the Chief Growth Officer at Xero. Now, if you want to remove that second job that we all know we live, right? You have the front end where everybody sees what you're doing, but then there's when you're in the dirt, digging deep where no one sees or even seems to care. That tedious work, figure out a way to get out of the rut of that ditch, right? Because you have to do it. It's the dirty work. You have to. But what if there was a way? And there is, right? And I apologize for the patronage in my tone. There is a way. There's many companies. Zoho is here for you. Chris, would you validate this? Or I'm okay if you disagree. I'm totally okay with that. I'm okay. When you look at runways that we have in business, if you take your eyes off your product development, you still can live off the steam of your current product that is working for an extended period of time. If you take your eyes off your marketing and sales, you can live off of that for an extended period of time. But as soon as you take your eyes off of managing your dollars, your runway is very short in comparison to the other business functions that we have to own as small business owners. Would you agree or disagree? Just the importance of keeping your eyes on your dollars.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I mentioned it just a bit ago. I think one of the main reasons that businesses go out of business and they fail is because they don't manage cash flow properly. So I would agree with that. I would challenge a little bit in saying the number one thing is to really understand why you exist as a company, right?
Okay.
Like, are you solving a real problem? And do you have an authentic passion for that problem? And, success isn't about the random feature here or there. It's about, can you actually solve that problem in a unique way and really deliver against that in the long term. But you're right, on a very day in and day out basis, having a firm grip on your cash flow, and really all the back office things that are not very sexy, but they're very important to fueling that journey towards that real reason why you exist in the first place.
Chris, as always, a pleasure to connect and chat. Folks, if you want to reach out to Chris and his team at XERO, there is a whole army of I apologize. People at XERO, you call yourselves
we call ourselves zeros.
The zeros. There's a whole army of zeros waiting to help you out. But I think the thing that mattered most, and again, thank you, Chris, for sharing, is just there's a passion that's rising within these zeros to partner with your businesses, to consult, to see things that perhaps you don't see, what's around, and to also see and to show you what trends are coming up next. They invest heavily in a lot of studies and research. And the next time we have Chris back on, we're certainly going to jump into some of the studies that they capture the data in real time and they roll out on a regular basis. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Shiraz. Have a wonderful weekend, and it's been a fun conversation today.
Hey, thanks for joining us today, and feel free to share this episode with others as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Canadian SME Small Business Magazine to stay up to date on all our upcoming events and get top business insights from industry leaders. This is Shiraz Sadiq, your host for the Marketing and Business Automation series, brought to you by Zoho.
And thank you to the team at Canadian SME for making the Marketing Automation series possible. And thank you for spending time investing in your business to move forward with Small Business Talks. The Marketing Automation series is brought to you by Zoho. Visit zoho.com or email sales@zohocorp.com to better understand how Zoho can literally transform your operational flow. This is Shiraz Sadiq, paving a way for your prosperity.